up, guys? So today I'm gonna do a what's in the bag, pre-winter what's in the bag, because I'm gonna be changing some of the discs because last winter I ended up breaking 2 of my discs since I throw a lot of older plastic. But anyways, let's get right into it. First thing I want to show you is that I use an orange mini. So comment down below what color mini you guys use. Kind of curious. Anyways, let's move on to my putting putters. So I use an X Putt R for right now. This thing is what I've always grown up putting with. It's just kind of a coincidence that I ran into this putter because I randomly chose it at a tournament a long time ago, and it's great for turbo putts. It has a -1 turn, goes straight for me, and I can still make it hyzer even if I throw it off the tee sidearm. Then my second putting putter is a Z Putt R. It flies pretty much the same as this, except it's not going to flip up just as easy. And I like this for wind putts. Sometimes I like to throw it off the tee also. Moving on to my driving putters, approach putters, whatever you want to call it. First is my Champion AVR. It's also glow. And I have 2 aces with this disc on the same hole. It goes pretty straight, but I can rely on it to still hook and fade for me. So I actually throw it on little flex lines if I'm throwing down the hill. I love throwing this thing down hills, that's for sure. Great disc, had it for a long time, but it's still pretty stable. So the next disc is the Hydra. This thing is pretty overstable for me and it fades pretty hard. So if I need like a skip shot, but it needs to be really short, I'll throw this. Even though it's a putter, it'll skip for me. And I've even done a 360 backhand throw with this thing, and it's still hyzered out. It didn't really flip up at all. So this thing is awesome. I would compare it to like a light version of the Zone. I don't know if it cuts as fast as the Zone, but this thing is pretty overstable. Definitely give it a try. My next one that I want to show you is the Arrow. Now this one actually hasn't aged much since I've got it. I found it a long time ago, or someone gave it to me, I don't remember, but I never threw it for the longest time. But now I love this disc. It's great for straight shots and amazing for hyzer flips. I usually throw this for shots that I need to hyzer flip or just like a really light turn. This disc is great, and also the little thing in the middle is because I was playing glow, so don't mind that. Next disc is a Pro D soft magnet. This has 1 ace and a course in Florida, and this thing is pretty beat. I don't know if you can really see how deformed it really is, but I actually have like thumb imprints on it from throwing it so much. And I got it in 2013, but since it's a soft putter, you know, it beats in a lot faster than other discs. But this thing, you've seen me actually throw in a video. It's kind of stable, but I rely on it for like those bigger hyzer flips, like 280 feet. Love this disc, awesome, can't get rid of it. And my final driving putter is the Yeti Pro AVR. This thing is pretty straight and it does not flip up. So I can throw this thing as hard as I want, sidearm or backhand. It's gonna fade out very slightly at the end. I love this for straight shots, and I love this for downhill throws. There's this downhill shot at a course I like to play. It's called Rolling Hills. It's 330 feet, and you have 3 options. You can either throw a spike sidearm, a spike backhand, or straight down the middle. But the straight down the middle shot is risky unless you have a disc that goes straight. So I like to throw this dead straight as hard as I can, just sidearm, go straight at the basket, and I even hit the cage one time. Moving on to mid-range. So the first mid-range is definitely one of my favorites, and I just love how it feels, is my MRX. This one is actually glow. Now this disc is innately overstable, pretty stable, but this one's pretty old and it hyzer flips for me, but I can still get it to fade. So this thing is for like when I barely need a shot to fade to the right for a sidearm. Now I don't throw this one backhand very much, but I will say for sidearm it goes pretty straight and then will fade for me. So this is actually a replacement MRX. I have an MRX that looks similar to that, but I lost it on a course. So this one I pretty much just bought over the summer. It has a price tag still on it, and it's overstable. I use this for anything that I really want to hook, you know, 300 feet or even like a spike hyzer sidearm. This thing is pretty stable. It doesn't flip up on me. Awesome. All right, easily my favorite mid-range in my bag right now is my Elite X MRV. So this one is like the straightest disc of all time, right? I do throw it for hyzer flips. It's pretty much like straight to understable, but honestly, when I throw it for backhand upshots, I do get it to flex. So I'm gonna just say overall that it is just a straight up straight disc. And I can crush this up to like 340 depending on the hole, and it'll flip to the left for me just barely, slightly. I used to have another MRV and I showed you it got cracked. That one went more left for me, but this one is pretty much dead straight, barely left. Awesome disc. I have 1 ace on it. Next disc is my Z MRV. I've had this for a long time, and unlike that other MRV, this one is pretty stable to overstable, so I can throw it pretty hard and I can still get it to fade. And this thing goes straight. I can just rely on it and I can just throw it as hard as I want. Great disc. I don't really use it for flex shots. I pretty much throw everything on a hyzer and I just throw it really hard, and depending on the disc, I just let it do the work. So that's kind of how I go about throwing. But this thing, I use it for big drives, headwind drives, you name it. This thing's awesome. Has 3 aces. And my final mid-range, this one's pretty special. It's another MRX, but this one is actually understable. I use it for big hyzer flips, so I'll start it like this, and I can get it to finish left like this. This one I really like for uphill shots. As you can see, it's starting to like really wear out. I don't know if I can throw it in the winter, and also this color is terrible for the winter. You can see it's like starting to really like erode, but anyways, this thing I love for uphill shots because it's innately going to flip for me, so I can just throw barely any hyzer and it's just going to go straight up the hill, and it's awesome. It works out. All right, let's move on to the drivers. So honestly, I don't throw many fairways. I do have fairways I'm kind of experimenting with, but the only one I trust in my bag as of now is the T-Bird. Now, I like the DX T-Bird because I actually use this thing for big turnover shots in the air, and honestly just like low ceiling shots. But one of my favorite things about this disc is that it's so slow that if I crank on it on this kind of angle, it'll go left forever. And since this one's actually new, this is a new DX T-Bird, it'll actually come back at the very end. So this thing goes pretty far, but it's really used for those tricky drives where you would have to throw a backhand hyzer flip. So you have to start it like this, and then have to come up like this because it's not that steep of a turn off the pad. So this is when I like to pull this thing out and throw it on a sidearm and hyzer, and it's just gonna hold that line forever. This disc, awesome, had it forever. This one itself, is brand new and I just bought it, but it flies really nice. Anyways, let's move on to my distance drivers. So the first one I want to show is one that I don't throw all the time, and it has a glow sticker. This is a Pro Katana. I'm not super familiar with Star versus Pro, but the only katanas I've ever thrown were Pro, and this thing is like a little bit flippy, and it's not the easiest disc to control, but if I do have the place and time to throw it, I do like to throw it because it just goes so far. It's a speed 13 and it just flips up for me, and I've almost aced a 385 foot hole with this thing sidearm. This thing's awesome. Have to recommend it if you have the chance to throw it. Next disc is my old Flippy Pro Wraith. So I got it from a friend and he gave it to me as a gift because he knew I lost something, or I think he just knew I liked Wraiths or whatever and he didn't want it. He just gave it to me. This and another one, but I lost the other one. Anyways, this thing is pretty flippy. It's like my T-Bird, you know, like I get it to flip, but this is for shots that the T-Bird can't reach, right? So this is 11 speed, -1 turn, and it just travels pretty far, and I can rely on it to flip, and I don't have to worry about that. So this is just pretty much another utility disc. I don't really use it for big drives that often, but you know, if maybe there's a tailwind, then I can probably pull this thing out and then crank on it. Next is currently my favorite driver. So I pretty much use this for, you know, anything up to 400 feet where I have to throw it straight, because this thing, this Pro Wraith, it'll fade at the end, but if I throw it hard, it'll just go straight. Backhand or sidearm, this thing is awesome. It doesn't fade as hard as like a Star Wraith, and you've seen me throw it in a few videos unknowingly, and this thing is just pretty awesome. I actually got it over the summer. It's starting to get a little bit beat in, but it just feels great, and I just rip on this thing so hard. It's great for those shots where you have to throw it dead straight and barely any fade at all. And the best thing about it is when I have to throw a 350 straight, I don't even have to I barely have to throw it. So this thing, awesome, have to recommend it. Let's move on to my other Star Wraith in the bag. You've seen this in a field video for sure. This one I traded a Mako 3-4 from my friend, and I have to say it's a great trade. This thing is a little bit stable to overstable, so this is something that I could come out on an angle like this really hard and I could still get it to fade at the end. Considering it's a Wraith, you usually don't want to do that unless it's a new one, because Wraiths are generally a little bit flippy, which is why I like them a lot. But this thing goes pretty far. I can use it for skip shots, anything like that. Great disc. Next, we're getting into my 2 Overstable discs. This one I've had since 2013. It's a Z Force. This thing is pretty awesome. It's like pretty much completely flat. I don't really know how much that affects the flight, but I love this thing so much. I don't want it to break in the winter. I don't know if I'm going to be switching it out. But this thing goes really far without me really trying, but this thing is great for headwind drive. It's not going to flip up. This Z plastic makes it really overstable, and honestly, it doesn't turn as fast as you think it would, so it's great for those shots where it needs to go straight for a little bit, but then it needs to hook hard, either left or right, backhand or sidearm. And yeah, this is great for headwind drives as well. Love it. And finally, my most overstable disc in the bag is surprisingly a destroyer. Now, destroyers usually are overstable, but these Paul Macbeth destroyers are crazy. I don't know what Paul Macbeth did to these destroyers, but this one is like the most overstable disc in my bag. I have more overstable discs at home, but I prefer using this one because I can literally just throw it like this and it's going to come out. I can throw this one as hard as I want and it's going to fade no matter what. So I love this disc. I usually use it more as like a utility disc, utility shot kind of thing. Like if I need a skip, I haven't really thrown it overhead yet, but yeah, it's great to have a disc that is just so overstable you don't have to really worry about it. Anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed this in the bag. I'm going to be changing my bag a little bit once it starts snowing because, as you know, I don't want any more of my discs to break. I broke 2 in 1 year, which is definitely a record for me. Usually discs don't even break anyways. But anyways, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like. And if you want to see more disc golf videos, make sure to subscribe. Anyways, thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one. Have a good one. Peace.